Repressive governments often use various tools, such as schools and media, to influence public opinion. Despite their efforts, sometimes the people's opinions may differ, creating a nightmare for these regimes. Russian President Vladimir Putin has been in power since 1999 and has used propaganda to sway the opinions of Russian citizens. However, it seems that the Russian people are no longer convinced by Putin's propaganda, and this reaction is affecting Russian soldiers as well. Thousands of Russian citizens have joined the Ukrainian army, and the latest developments on this issue are shocking. We investigated this phenomenon, and here is what we found. The story of 28-year-old Sergei Blasko is emblematic of this situation. Despite Putin's propaganda, Blasko opposed the war and decided to join the Ukrainian army to fight against Putin's rule. Although he was ultimately detained by Russian soldiers while trying to cross the border, his story resonated with thousands of Russian citizens who shared messages of support for him. As a result of this incident, thousands of Russians who joined the Ukrainian army began posting on social media calling for Putin to withdraw from Ukraine to end the war. These soldiers emphasized that the war only served Putin's political goals, and their messages fueled Russian citizens' anger towards Putin. The relationship between Ukraine and Russia is complex, with many Russian citizens living in Ukraine. When Putin decided to invade Ukraine, these Russians living in Ukraine reacted strongly and vowed to protect Ukraine's independence. Furthermore, thousands of Russian soldiers sent to fight in Ukraine rebelled against their commander's orders and joined the Ukrainian army to fight against Putin. As the war continues, more Russian soldiers are switching sides to join the Ukrainian army, significantly affecting the war's course. Some Russian soldiers from Bakhmut have also joined the Ukrainian army, potentially changing the outcome of the fighting in Bahu. The war between Russia and Ukraine has intensified in recent months, with the Russian army suffering heavy losses. Despite this, Putin refuses to withdraw Russian troops, leading to tensions between soldiers and commanders. As a result, Russian soldiers have grown to despise the Kremlin leadership and the Russian press, which they view as producing fake news to manipulate the public. Some Russian soldiers plan to flee the war zone and seek asylum in Europe, while others decided to surrender to Ukraine. Some of these soldiers opted to join the Ukrainian army and fight against Russia, forming a unit called the Free Russia Legion. This unit has grown rapidly and has inflicted significant damage on the Russian army, particularly in Bod. These Russian soldiers possess critical information about the Russian army's war plans and ammunition depot locations. This knowledge has allowed the Ukrainian army to carry out strategic operations, forcing the Russian army to change its plans. Moreover, the Russian soldiers who joined the Ukrainian army brought many weapons and ammunition, strengthening the Ukrainian army. The Ukrainian army has managed to establish a significant advantage in the town of Bod, blocking all routes that the Russian army can use to deliver ammunition. The Russian army is being cornered in this city, and even the Russian media has begun to change its reporting on the situation. The departure of Russian soldiers from the army is considered the biggest evidence of Russia's defeat in this city. The decision of Russian soldiers to join the Ukrainian army will likely have a significant impact on the war's course. The reaction of Russian citizens to these events indicates growing dissatisfaction with Putin's regime, and the outcome of the fighting in Bakhmut remains uncertain. As the conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues, the increasing number of Russian soldiers joining the Ukrainian army may have long-lasting effects on the region's political landscape. The actions of these soldiers and the reactions of Russian citizens can have significant implications for the future. Firstly, the fact that Russian soldiers are defecting to the Ukrainian side reveals deep dissatisfaction with Putin's regime and the ongoing conflict. This could potentially lead to more widespread dissent within the Russian military, which may weaken the Russian army's overall fighting capabilities. A weaker Russian military could face further setbacks on the battlefield, prolonging the conflict and causing even more devastation to the region. Secondly, as Russian citizens become more aware of the soldiers' defections and the real situation on the ground, they may start questioning the official narratives provided by the government-controlled media. This could lead to growing public discontent and calls for an end to the conflict, putting pressure on the Russian government to change its approach. If the Russian government is unable to manage this discontent, it could face increased domestic instability and political challenges. Thirdly, the defections of Russian soldiers and the subsequent strengthening of the Ukrainian army could lead to a shift in the balance of power in the region. As the Ukrainian army becomes more capable, it may be able to push back against Russian forces more effectively, altering the course of the conflict. If the Ukrainian army can secure more significant victories, it may force the Russian government to reconsider its strategy or even enter into negotiations to end the fighting. Lastly, the ongoing conflict and the defections of Russian soldiers could impact Russia's international reputation and relationships with other countries. The growing evidence of Russian soldiers fighting against their own country's military may further isolate Russia in the international community, leading to more sanctions and diplomatic pressure. This isolation could hinder Russia's ability to achieve its geopolitical goals in the region and beyond. In conclusion, the actions of Russian soldiers joining the Ukrainian army and the reactions of Russian citizens to these events have far-reaching implications for the future of the conflict, Russia's domestic stability, and its international standing. As the situation continues to evolve, it remains crucial to monitor these developments closely to understand the broader consequences for the region and the world.